There is a small, arid patch of land on the Horn of Africa, no bigger than New Jersey, that has become the most crowded military real estate on the planet. To the north lies the Red Sea, to the east the Gulf of Aden. Between them sits a narrow stretch of water just 18 miles wide, the Bab el-Mandeb, or the Gate of Tears. This is the country of Djibouti, and right now it is the only place on Earth where you will find Chinese and American soldiers stationed practically within shouting distance of one another. For most of history, this region was a backwater, a graveyard for ships caught in unpredictable cross-currents and shallow reefs. It was a dead end. But in 1869, everything changed. A French company completed the Suez Canal, and suddenly, the Gate of Tears became the gateway to the world. It slashed the travel time between Europe and Asia by weeks, turning this volatile choke point into the primary artery for global trade. Today, nearly 30% of the world's container ships and millions of barrels of oil pass through this narrow needle every single day. But there's a problem. This vital artery is surrounded by chaos. To the north, Yemen is engulfed in a brutal civil war where Houthi rebels regularly fire missiles at cargo ships. To the west and south, the region has been plagued by failed states and the persistent threat of piracy. In this sea of instability, Djibouti has managed to do something extraordinary. It transformed its lack of resources into its greatest strength. Djibouti has almost no fertile land, no oil, and no industry. What it has is a front-row seat to the most important waterway on the map. In the late 19th century, the French were the first to realize this potential, establishing French Somaliland to secure their route to the east. When Djibouti finally gained independence in 1977, it was a country with 20,000 camels and almost no economy. The government made a calculated bet. If they couldn't produce goods, they would sell security. They allowed the French to stay, providing a base in exchange for protection and aid. But the real turning point came after September 11, 2001. As the United States launched its global war on terror, it desperately needed a staging ground in Africa. Djibouti said yes, and Camp Lemonnier became the only permanent U.S. military base on the continent. Once the Americans moved in, the floodgates opened. Japan established its only foreign military base here. Italy followed, Spain and Germany sent troops. Then in 2017, the geopolitical landscape shifted significantly. China opened its first-ever overseas military support base right down the road from the Americans. While Beijing claimed the base was for anti-piracy efforts, its massive piers are large enough to dock aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines. Djibouti had become the ultimate balancing act, a neutral ground where rivals pay hundreds of millions of dollars in rent to stay relevant. For the people of Djibouti, this base economy is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the rent from these bases makes up a massive portion of the national GDP. On the other hand, this influx of foreign cash props up a government that has been in power for over 25 years, often at the expense of democratic reforms. The soldiers largely stay behind their fences, drinking water flown in from their home countries, creating little islands of foreign territory in the middle of the desert. Beyond the global superpowers, there is a regional game at play. Ethiopia, a landlocked giant with over 120 million people, depends on Djibouti for 95% of its trade. This makes Djibouti the gatekeeper for one of Africa's fastest-growing economies. However, this dependency creates friction. When neighboring Eritrea or Middle Eastern powers like the UAE try to influence the region, Djibouti has to play a high-stakes game of musical chairs, swapping partners and offering port access to the highest bidder to ensure no single power gains too much leverage. The tragedy of the Gate of Tears is that its importance only grows as the world becomes more dangerous. As we move away from a world of cooperation toward a new era of great power competition, the pressure on this tiny nation is mounting. Every missile fired in Yemen, every Chinese infrastructure project, and every U.S. drone flight adds to the tension. Djibouti is no longer just a refueling stop. It is the barometer for the global order. If the balancing act here fails, the ripple effects won't just be felt in Africa. They will be felt at every gas pump and in every shipping port across the globe. In the 21st century, power isn't just about who has the most weapons. It's about who controls the choke points. And right now, all eyes are on Djibouti.